The first time I saw the concrete barriers across my driveway, I thought someone was pulling a prank. 3 massive gray blocks, each the size of a small car, lined up shoulder to shoulder like they were guarding a military base. I just stood there, coffee in hand, staring at them while my brain caught up. Then I saw the laminated sign taped to one of them. Community access. Do not remove. And right beneath that, her name. Karen Hernandez, President, Lakeside Meadows, HOA. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't a prank. This was war. My wife stepped out beside me, blinking at the sight. "Please tell me this is a joke," she said. I shook my head. Nope. Full-scale HOA invasion. The crazy part is, I'd seen this coming. Karen had been itching for revenge ever since I called her out in last month's HOA meeting about her curb repainting initiative, which was really just an excuse to fine half the neighborhood for chipped paint. I told her politely that my driveway wasn't HOA property. She'd smiled back tight and fake, the kind of smile that says, "Challenge accepted." Tad. Now, here she was making good on her threat with concrete. I called the HOA office first. No answer voicemail said they were closed for administrative review. Translation, hiding behind bureaucracy. So I called the sheriff's department. A young deputy named Marks came out, walked around the barriers, scratching his chin. "They're not technically on the road," he said. "Looks like she claims it's for safety." Safety from what I asked. My truck escaping. He half smirked, half shrugged. "You could always file an injunction. How long does that take? A month or 2? Maybe 3? Of course. Exactly the kind of slow justice Karen was counting on. Right on cue, her front door swung open. Out came Karen Hernandez, pressed beige slacks cardigan HOA badge, clipped like a sheriff's star clipboard in hand. She waved like we were best friends. "Morning, neighbor," she called out. "Sorry about the temporary access restriction. The board voted to address traffic flow concerns." Traffic. I looked up and down the dead-end street. 3 houses, 1 streetlight, a few kids' scooters left on the curb. What traffic? "Community maintenance vehicles," she said with a sugar-sweet smile. "We're trying to prevent wear and tear on shared surfaces." I clenched my jaw. She wasn't protecting the street. She was testing how much she could get away with. "Karen," I said evenly, "this is illegal." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "It's not like I poured the concrete myself. The contractor was hired by the HOA. "You are the HOA president," I said. "Yes, which means this is well within my jurisdiction." "Your jurisdiction doesn't include my property line." She tapped her clipboard, eyes glinting. "We'll see." I went back inside before my patience broke. My wife followed, arms crossed. "You're not seriously going to let her get away with this, are you?" "No," I said. "I'm just deciding which way I want to make her regret it." That night, I couldn't sleep. Those blocks sat out there like tombstones in the moonlight. Every time I looked at them, my blood boiled. Karen had won the first move again. Small rules, anonymous complaints, passive-aggressive letters. This was just her masterpiece. But as the night dragged on, my anger started to solidify into something colder resolve. By sunrise, I had my plan. I called my old Army buddy, Mike. He ran a construction company now. "Hey, I said you still got that bulldozer." There was a pause. "What are you demolishing?" Technically a mistake. By mid-morning, Mike rolled into Lakeside Meadows with a bright yellow dozer that roared like thunder. Neighbors came out, phones in hand, ready to film the chaos. And there she was again, Karen, standing at the curb with her arms folded like a queen guarding her kingdom. "You can't bring that vehicle here without HOA approval," she barked. "It's not a vehicle," I said, climbing into the cab. "It's a correction." Her eyes widened. "Correction for what?" "Your judgment." The engine roared to life, echoing through the cul-de-sac. The bulldozer crept forward, its metal treads grinding against the asphalt. Karen ran toward it, waving her clipboard like it could stop a 10-ton machine. "Stop. You'll damage community property." I leaned out the window. "Karen, I think you mean my driveway." And then the crunch drowned her out. Concrete split like dry clay. Dust filled the air. The first block tumbled aside, the second cracked in half. By the time the third one fell, the crowd was cheering. Karen was shaking red-faced, screaming something about lawsuits. I climbed down from the cab, brushed off my hands, and looked her dead in the eye. "Now," I said calmly, "we can talk about who's really trespassing." The deputy showed up again, sighing like he'd been expecting this call. He took one look at the scene and said, "Well, technically you removed an obstruction from your property." Karen exploded. "He destroyed community assets. They were placed without permit," Mark said. "So maybe don't do that next time." She sputtered, speechless. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But that night around midnight, I heard something outside. The sound of scraping metal. I looked out of the window, Karen, flashlight in hand, dragging a chunk of broken concrete back toward my driveway. I stepped onto the porch. "Karen," I said. Voice low, "You're trespassing again." She froze, hair-wild eyes glowing in the beam. "You don't get to win," she hissed. "You made me look ridiculous. You did that yourself." She dropped the concrete with a dull thud. "This isn't over." "I know," I said. "It never is with you." She stomped off into the dark. I stood there for a long time listening to the crickets, thinking. This woman wasn't fighting for the neighborhood. She was fighting for control, and I'd just taken it from her. The next morning, my driveway looked like a war zone, concrete rubble, tire marks, dust everywhere. And the HOA thread online. Exploding. Half the neighborhood was on my side. The other half said I was a menace. Karen posted a long, self-righteous rant accusing me of endangering residents and destruction of public assets. She even cropped photos to make it look like her barriers were on the road. That's when I realized this wasn't just about concrete anymore. It was about narrative. So I called my lawyer friend Denise and sent her the footage. Then I called Mike, who told me one of his guys had filmed the entire Bulldozer moment clear as day. Karen screaming concrete cracking and my truck trapped behind it all. That footage went online before the HOA meeting that night. When I walked into the clubhouse, it was standing room only. People from other neighborhoods came just to watch. Karen sat at the head table, smug as ever. "We are here." She began to address a gross act of vandalism committed by one of our residents. I raised my hand. "Against your ego, you mean?" Laughter rippled through the room. Her jaw tightened. She launched into her speech about safety community standards, blah, 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 but Denise stood up halfway through and played the video on the projector. Silence. Then gasps. Then whispers. Denise's voice was calm and surgical. This was done without authorization beyond property boundaries and under false pretenses. If harassment continues, we will pursue legal action. Karen's face drained of color. She looked around, realizing no one was backing her up. When the vote came to suspend her as president, it wasn't even close. She stormed out of the meeting, slamming the door so hard the blinds rattled. For the first time in months, the neighborhood exhaled. For about 48 hours. Then came the petty revenge. My mail stopped showing up. Trash pickup accidentally skipped my house. The landscaping crew started blowing leaves into my yard. And one morning someone spray-painted HOA terrorist across my mailbox. "My wife lost it. You said it was over." "I thought it was," I said. "But she's gone rogue." I wanted to quit. For a while, I really did. I started thinking maybe I'd gone too far, that maybe I was the problem. I'd turned the whole neighborhood into a circus. Maybe I should have just waited for court. Maybe I should have ignored her. But then I saw my wife scrubbing the paint off our mailbox, tears in her eyes, and I realized people like Karen don't stop when you stay quiet. They stop when they're exposed. So I started documenting everything. Every complaint, every violation, every accident. I built a timeline that made her look like what she really was, a dictator with a clipboard. Then I printed it, dropped a copy in every mailbox in Lakeside Meadows. Within a day, the neighborhood erupted. People compared notes. Fines that made no sense. Warnings that were never voted on invoices to fake companies. Someone even found payments from HOA funds to a landscaping business owned by Karen's cousin. By the time the county heard about it, it was over. Auditors showed up at her house hauling out boxes of files. Neighbors peeked from their blinds as the so-called Queen of Lakeside Meadows was reduced to a trembling bystander. A week later, her nameplate was removed from the HOA office door. And then silence. She vanished. Didn't show up at court. Her house sat dark for days. Until one night, flames lit the sky. Karen's house was burning. The fire spread fast, chewing through the wood like it had been waiting years. No one was inside. The report said electrical, but everyone knew better. The next month, that empty lot became a community garden, a clean slate. I stood there on opening day watching neighbors plant flowers in the same dirt where her house once stood, and I finally exhaled. Maybe the war was over. Maybe, just maybe, we were free. And as I looked at the fresh rows of tulips growing where her walls once stood, one truth settled in my mind. You can build walls, or you can build gardens. Either way, something grows. The choice is what you want to live next to.